Who is the biggest troll in history? April Fool's Day 1974, when a man burned 70 rubber tires on a dormant volcano in Alaska. This has to be up there. He waited 3 years to get a helicopter to fly the tires to the top to get a picture-perfect condition. He even got the Coast Guard called out too, and here's the link to the story. Web link. Porky's favorite response to the prank came in 1980. He received a letter from an attorney in Denver, inside of which was a clipping from the Denver Post with a photo of Mount St. Helens erupting. Attached was a note that read, "This time, you little bastard, you've gone too far." Amazing. There was a Prussian, I can't remember his name, who managed to make an officer uniform out of scraps of clothing. He used it to convince a few guards on patrol to follow him into a government building, ordered the arrest of the man in charge, and confiscated all the money personally, sent the arrested man to Berlin claiming it was all on order of the king. He then ditched the uniformed, got on a train to Berlin and managed to beat the guards there. He then sat back and watched the absolute confusion happen. The guy was eventually arrested, but the public turned him into a celebrity and his actions into a play that was performed all over Germany. He wasn't incarcerated for long, and after his release he lived an easy life from there on. The Kaiser even was proud for this to happen because it showed how much the people trusted the authorities. He's called the Hauptmann von Köpenick. The perpetrator of in which Cook sent thousands of letters summoning all manners of various vendors and service people and physicians and dignitaries and others to all come to one random person's home, literally shutting down a large part of London as they all descended upon the same address throughout the day, all while Cook and a friend sat watching from a house across the street, presumably laughing their asses off the whole time. Web link. Don't undersell how crazy this was. I thought this was just the 1810 equivalent of pranking a bunch of pizza companies, but after reading the wiki I realized this guy was on a whole another level. Getting wedding cakes delivered. Convincing the mayor of London to turn up 12 pianos. 12. The Archbishop of Canterbury. Even priests expecting to deliver someone's last rites. Personally, I think the priests was a bit far, but it was the pianos that were key for me. I don't know if 12 odds are good that one will be off key. Especially after dragging them through London to some random house. I bought a second-hand piano recently. Holy crap, are they hard to move. With 4 strong people it's possible to just about lift, but as you go through an entry doorway you can't all 4 share the work evenly. 12 freaking pianos. Basically, the first ever DDoS. Distributed denial of street. My favorite part about Theodore Hook is that he is the most probable author of a ballad about the, cheerfully describing the incident with such lines as, "They cut his throat from ear to ear, his head they battered in." His name was Mr. William Ware, he lived in Lyons Inn. That being said, he's not the only plausible author. I recently did research on this for the Wikipedia article, and they were attributed to another guy. If you'd like to sing this little verse, it was apparently intended to be sung to the tune of. Web link. Now that's what I call entertainment. I forget the name, but that one guy from the 1800s who bought specific tickets to a play and then gave them away to bald men on the street so that when everyone took their seats and the bald men's heads reflected the light from the stage, they spelled out F as seen from the stage. On another, he challenged an old school friend from Eton, the newly elected Conservative, to race him on a London street to the nearest corner, giving him a 10-yard. Cole had already slipped his gold watch into his friend's pocket, and with Locker Lampson running ahead at full speed, Cole waited till they were passing a policeman and began to yell, "Stop thief." Locker Lampson was promptly arrested and the watch found. After savoring the moment, Cole explained that it was all a joke, and both men were told to go on their way. Unfortunately, Cole then began waving his stick in a dangerous manner, as though conducting an imaginary band, and both men were arrested and taken into custody. No charge was brought against Locker Lampson, but Cole was found guilty and fined £5. That is the most hilarious piece of history I know now. Web link. £5. Even if it was in the late 1800s, that was £5 well spent. Please tell me you have a source on this. His name was. Other pranks attributed to him included walking around the streets of London with a cow's udder poking through the fly of his trousers, and cutting it off with a pair of scissors when he judged he had caused maximum outrage depositing a load of horse manure in Venice's Piazza San Marco, which cannot be reached by horses. He was in Venice for his honeymoon at the time, hosting a lavish party at which the attendees eventually realized that all their surnames contained the word bottom. Some sources state that the theater prank actually spelled out bollocks, and it's possible he may have done it more than once. Web link. Can't forget the Dreadnought affair where he and Virginia Woolf disguised themselves as Abyssinian royalty, Woolf notably cross-dressed to be a male royal, to get themselves onto the HMS Dreadnought. Absolute legend. Incredible. I wonder how hard it would be to pull off again. I don't know, after you've cut it off it's usually impossible to pull it off afterwards. I'd say it's easier to pull it off after it's been cut. I love picturing him on his honeymoon being all like, we can see the sights tomorrow, honey. Today I've got to do a bit with horse crap. I would love to know what maximum outrage meant to him. According to Wikipedia, it's not maximum outrage but optimum outrage, which in my opinion raises even more questions. Optimum outrage likely means outraged enough to be mad but not so outraged they start attacking. Maximum outrage would probably mean assaulting him. That last prank is effing hilarious, haha. Proto Eric Andre. You're watching Utters Up, the worst show on television. Mad Lad. Eric the Red. He wanted people to come and live in his newfound ice-covered land, so he named it Greenland. Hey, I heard there's this even better place, called Wineland, just a bit further. There's a belief to why it was named Wineland, Vinland. That's not due to trickery though. When first settled, the climate was very different, much warmer and had an abundant yield of grapes, therefore the name. I remember reading that during the same time England also had great amount of grapes. But climate changed drastically and the area was forced to be abandoned, and Icelanders had to adapt to living in harsher and colder weather. Now I'm not a scientist and you should do your own research before settling with my explanations though. The peak of the Viking Age coincided with unusually warm temperatures, which is why doing things like settling Greenland and sailing across the iceberg-covered North Atlantic seemed like perfectly reasonable ideas at the time, but then seemed like myths just a couple generations later. It was an unusually warm period followed immediately by an unusually cool period. The Little Ice Age saw temps considerably lower than they are today. I heard a theory the Vinland thing was actually about cranberries. The nearest descriptor being vin for grapes. I'm not looking crap up though, so just tell me how I'm wrong. How come the newly arrived settlers did not slay Eric for stating such bullcrap? Do you know why he was there in the first place? This Chinese general whose city was besieged by a much larger army, so he opened the main gate and sat atop it playing his flute. The enemy thought it was a trap, so they packed their stuff and left. If I remember correctly, that's advice from The Art of War. Audacity and nonchalance is a method to counter an overwhelming force. I don't know about The Art of War, but it is mentioned in another ancient Chinese strategy guide, the 36 Stratagems, where it is called the Empty Fort Strategy. Basically, if you act calm and harmless, they will think you're luring them into an ambush, and run away. It can also be used to actually lure your enemy into an ambush by making them think you're just trying to make them think you're luring them into an ambush. Effective against opponents who are prone to overthinking. It can also be used to actually lure your enemy into an ambush by making them think you're just trying to make them think you're luring them into an ambush. Haha, you fool. You fell victim to one of the classic blunders. Also, being forthright when your enemy expects deception. Ah, Zhuge Liang. Magnificent bastard was so feared as a strategist and tactician, he was allegedly carried onto the battlefield posthumously, and the opposing army, despite knowing he was already dead, decided they couldn't take the chance he had some sneaky crap in the works for them. Edit. Oh, first gold? Thank you, kind stranger, this is a good week for me. Zhuge Liang, the type of dude to stuff his body full of nitroglycerin and wait for the enemy general to perform a celebratory punch to his explosive nuts. A true champion of Sanch. This is the second time I am posting this correction on an AskReddit thread, no complaints. It wasn't a flute, it's most commonly referred to in English sources as a lute. However, it's not a lute either, it's a guqin, which is a type of Chinese 7-string zither. The reason it's referred to as a lute is because the Dutch sinologist Robert van Gulik wrote a book about the guqin called The Lore of the Chinese Lute. Yes, I understand now. It was a violin. I'm glad we're on the same page and I appreciate your cordial response. Thank you for not resorting to violence. I don't need to, you're clearly afraid of me sitting here playing my guqin. F this, you're obfuscating me, I'm out. He became notorious for his philosophical stunts, such as carrying a lamp during the day, claiming to be looking for an honest man. He criticized Plato, disputed his interpretation of Socrates, and sabotaged his lectures, sometimes distracting listeners by bringing food and eating during the discussions. Diogenes was also noted for having mocked Alexander the Great, both in public and to his face when he visited Corinth in 336 BC. Web link. My favorite Diogenes story. Diogenes stood outside a whorehouse yelling insults at the customers for visiting women of ill repute. They began giving him small coins to shut him up. When he collected enough coins, he went in the whorehouse. My man. And once when he saw the son of a whore throwing rocks into a crowd, he said, "Take care you don't hit your father." Came here to say this. This guy is so well known for trolling that people are still talking about it nearly 2,500 years later. I think he'd be proud of that. Alexander himself seemed amused at how few F's Diogenes had to give. You've clearly got some balls if you've managed to impress the guy that conquered like half the civilized world at the time. I am searching for the bones of your father but cannot distinguish them from those of a slave is such a wild and inventive diss. Plato, a human is a featherless biped. Diogenes, grabs chicken all right you pompous prick, I'll give you a featherless biped. What's up, effers? Hey, check out this person I found. Isn't it such a human? Look at him, wow. Slams chicken into the ground, what a guy. Anyway, love to stay and chat, but I saw some trash outside that looked delicious. Smell you later, deliberator. Behold. I've brought you a man. In a rich man's house there is no place to spit but his face. Diogenes. He also peed on people who disagreed with him and took a crap in a theater. That man gave no F's whatsoever. Neither do the bums on a crowded F train. Maybe thousands of years from now, scholars will be discussing our noted philosopher Tyrone Biggums. Let he who is without sin throw the first rock, and I shall smoketh it. He also jerked off in public. If only I could sate my hunger as easily by rubbing my belly. Diogenes holds up a plucked chicken. Behold, a man. Diogenes was an interesting character. He also argued that the concept of money was a stupid idea and shouldn't exist. Didn't George R. R. Martin once say that in the future he would love to get people so immersed in a fantasy world novel and never finish it? This would have happened with Robert Jordan's Wheel of Time series. He died partly through writing the 13th and final book in the series, but Brandon Sanderson finished it using his notes and concluded the series. I'm pretty sure most fans received it pretty well. Sanderson is such a effing champ. Love that guy. The dude who somehow got a network news program to say that a plane that crashed was piloted by 4 men with the names, Hu Li Fuck Some Ting Wong Wei to Lo Bang Ding Ao. Here you go. Web link. Thank you. I can't stop laughing. She delivers it so well. Some Ting Wong, I can feel it. Just a feeling I've got like Sun Ting's about to happen. It was local news, KTBU San Francisco, but yeah. Orson Welles did a radio play that told people the Martians were invading. The next day he told everyone that his play had freaked out millions of people, when it was a few dozen at most. Ironically, the troll wasn't Welles for running the show, but the papers for lying about its impact. Newspapers were terrified of radio and were constantly publishing stories about the evils of this satanic device. Local papers basically invented the story of the Martian panic wholesale, and it was an accepted part of history for decades before it was debunked. All you need to do is listen to the original show. The whole thing is an hour long. It starts off with an announcement of a War of the Worlds Halloween special. The first bit is standard 1920s radio fare, interrupted every now and again by fake reporters talking about a mysterious object that fell from the sky. By the 10-minute mark or so, he moves completely to the reporters discussing the invasion and the military response. 30 minutes in, there's a commercial break where Wells thanks listeners for tuning into his show. When the show picks up again, it's an audio play format where a man narrates himself walking through a devastated city while hiding from Martians. So whatever panic may or may not have happened could not have lasted longer than 15 minutes. Yeah, I bet the accidental nuke warning Hawaii have a couple years ago actually had the wholesale panic for 15 minutes. I mean, it was an emergency text from the government itself. Your son, 8-year-old male, has been abducted, last seen 3 p.m. in red Ford truck. Correction, Yoru son. Amber Alert F-ups are even better. Pretty sure it took the Hawaiian government like an hour to correct their error. They're lucky things didn't go worse and that social media helped calm the panic. Was that War of the Worlds? Michelangelo, without a doubt. This man was hired to paint a chapel and put more dicks and asses on it than you ever did see. Pope, my boy, this is a holy place, please treat it with the utmost respect. Michelangelo, pp. Biagio de Cesena, what's with all the butts? This would suit a brothel more than a chapel. Michelangelo, I've taken your criticism on board, and decided, hope you're okay with people seeing you naked with man tits, donkey ears and your dick being bitten by a snake forever. Mic drop. Web link. It gets even better. When Biagio complained to the Pope reportedly joked that his jurisdiction did not extend to hell, and that the painting would have to stay. Not only that, but in the creation of Adam, the section that God and the angels are sitting in looks an awful lot like the cross-section of the human brain. Dissections of humans were forbidden at the time, but still took place, and it's likely that Michelangelo was present at one and saw a halved brain. Thank you for watching. If you like our videos, please like them on YouTube. And share them with your friends. Please subscribe to be the first to know about Red Rabbit Reader's new videos. We welcome your comments below. Another of our videos will begin shortly.